retain his FBI security clearance before moving to special counsel Robert Mueller's team. Strzok is assured he will remain free to act just as he did while a deputy assistant director of the counterintelligence division. Joining us now, Chris Farrell. He's the director of investigations and research for Judicial Watch. And Chris, first of all, thanks for being here. Great to see you again. Great work. I don't even know what to say. The people who are named in this scandal in the FBI, who are patently, obviously, transparently corrupt, have the audacity to ask for continuing security clearances, even as they are moved to the special counsel. I mean, I don't understand this. The culture, the reasons that they understand they can get away with this nonsense. Help us out.
They had to advance the conspiracy. They're in the middle of a project trying to destroy President Trump. And so Strzok needed to keep all of his horsepower because he was just moving the effort to a new venue. And you'll note that he's emphatic about keeping his ability or his authority to declassify information. That's specifically mentioned in the text of the emails we recovered. And the reason why he wants to declassify information is so he can leak it. This is all part of an information campaign. This is the Stop Trump gang. We have it in their text messages and their emails. The FBI bends over backwards, changes procedure and process, creates a new floating deputy assistant director position so that Strzok can keep his hands in the game and be able to have the same authority and power while he's detailed over to the special counsel's office. This is abuse of power, abuse of procedure. It's criminal. And I think the emphasis on his authority to declassify information is quite telling, because if you want to look for leaks, and we already know that there's a problem with Comey and McCabe and Strzok and the manipulation of information, that's where you need to look.
Well, we need to look. The problem is the special counsel is the one doing the looking. And no one has, apparently, the energy or the vision to carry out an investigation from Congress that will directly go after exactly what you're saying. It's a peculiar time, and we know that all of these documents, the FISA warrants, the scope memo, we still haven't seen. Jim Kallstrom and I were just talking about that.
Yes.
By the way, Jim Kallstrom says to say hello to you.
Say hello back.
And hey back. I will pass that on too. There's a note here from Jim on criminal contempt, false statements, the lying in a court, denying civil rights of Trump at all, acting under color of law, and perjury. Yep. Those are just some of the notes that he has taken on what is going on here, and yet we don't have anyone in Congress, not even Devin Nunes, the chair of intelligence, who is, as Jim pointed out, has been the hero in this in Congress. Not even he has had the ability to go after these issues, and I don't know how we get to them. I really don't anymore, because justice is a corrupt and I think incompetent institution, and as we've discussed, the FBI is beyond repair.
Well, I can tell you that, Mueller has yet to be able to articulate the criminal predicate for his investigation. No one can tell you what crime Mr. Trump and his campaign purportedly committed. There's nothing there, so he can't tell you what the crime was. I can tell you what Strzok's been doing. 18 U.S.C. Section 242, which is deprivation of rights under color of law. It's essentially abuse of authority, abuse of process, exactly what Mr. Kallstrom was talking about a few moments ago. And so that kind of leveraging and using one's law enforcement power to try to steer an election, to target and go after a candidate for the presidency, is the most outrageous abuse of law enforcement and intelligence powers we've ever seen. And now it's compounded because this whole effort to go after Manafort, and I have no sympathy for Manafort, but the whole effort to go after him is to squeeze him so that he'll say something about this meeting with a Russian attorney and Donald Jr. and the rest of the people. And, you know, and let's be clear about that meeting.
Well, wait a minute.
The vessel
we
Vitskaya.
can't go meeting by meeting, Chris. We're really in trouble, if you will. Your point.
No, I was going to say that the meeting with the Russian attorney, she met with Fusion GPS before the meeting and then after the meeting. Right. And in the intelligence world, that's called dispatch and recovery. She was a targeted asset of Fusion GPS in the Clinton campaign to try to generate a crisis.
Fusion GPS has just been corralled by the Russian oligarch who has charged them with other things, including defaming him and his companies. I mean, this is going the other way, but it takes a Russian oligarch to actually use the court system to get to one of the obvious central actors, and that is, you know, is Fusion GPS.
Mr. Mueller, if you're looking for conspiracy, go back to Fusion GPS and the Hillary Clinton campaign.
It's amazing to me. And one last quick question, quick answer, if you would. We see now that Comey has been told to preserve his records. He's going to be ordered back to Congress. Is there anything to that? Is it a moment, or is it just another non-event?
The more Comey talks, the better. You know, he's in a position now where he's contradicted himself repeatedly. So let's keep Jim Comey talking. The indictment will write itself.
Chris Farrell, thank you for helping those folks out with all that you do, and hopefully those indictments will be written soon, because it's going to have a lot more names than the former fired FBI Director James Comey. Chris Farrell, thanks so much.
Thanks, Lou.
Joining us tonight, James Kallstrom, former Assistant Director of the FBI. He served nearly 30 years with the Bureau, and it is great to have you with us. Great to see you.
27 years. Good years.
Those are great years for the country, too, because your service, it was a different time, the FBI, a different organization.
Ronald Reagan.
Yep.
Now we have Donald Trump.
You better believe it. And they stand as pillars in the pantheon of presidents. And they have made such an impact, this president already. It's hard to believe he hasn't even been in office 2 years. And meanwhile, the deep state, the radical Dems, are going after him like dogs. And in the Republican Party leadership, the rhinos, McConnell and Ryan, don't stand with him. And as a matter of fact, they provide support and substance to the.
They are so paid off and so weak and so. I mean, if I had my sidearm, I'd have to hold my hand down not to shoot the television out when I see Ryan talking. I mean, and just the way he has absolutely had no support whatsoever for this president. Look at what he's done for our economy. Look what he's done for the middle class, lower class, all classes of people.
Right.
I mean, lowest employment rates across the board. And then we hear the Strzok now. We see some more of his communications.
Strzok, the FBI.
Where he wants to hold on to all his clearances and all his ability to classify and unclassify, so he can really churn up the whole conspiracy over there while he's working for Bob Mueller.
Yeah, it's to have him near the special counsel in any capacity is stunning to begin with. The fact that Mueller dismissed him without even considering the reasons that he had done so. These texts that he's looking at that basically scream subversion of a presidency, and not one question from the special counsel of Peter Strzok.
Of course, he never told anybody either.
No, he forgot to mention that.
He forgot to mention that.
There's so much that the special counsel hasn't mentioned.
You know, he takes a 14-year-old case that apparently they couldn't make a case 14 years ago.
Right.
You know, so what do? They send they go in the middle of the night, serve search warrants for his family. I mean, just the way they've treated this guy. He's in solitary confinement by the judge in the D.C. circuit. I mean, just an outrage the way they've dealt with this.
And they've carefully selected the juries and the venues for their advantage. And understandably, that's what you would want to do, I guess, if you're a prosecutor or a defense attorney. But to do so heavy-handedly, so obviously biased and completely outside the bounds of just fundamental common sense and decency and judgment.
Our system of laws has to treat everybody the same, from the chairman of the bank to the drug dealer. Everybody has to have the same respect. And what they've done, in just the way they searched Donald Trump's lawyer, the way that was handled, just
you don't even hear anything. There's no discussion now amongst the professionals. That is the American Bar Association, the attorneys. They're all like hyenas attacking carcasses, instead of talking about elevating the standards, the conduct of investigators to the standards that are required by law.
And of course, no discussion of grand juries.
Oh.
You know, the Intelligence Committee in the House did a great job. Notice he's the one shining light, really.
Absolutely.
You know, but until we can actually see what's in those affidavits, you know, the original one and then the continuations, you know, the regulations say, you get the order and you're proclaiming that there's some kind of a offense, you know, some sort of a crime going on or some sort of counterintelligence investigation. Well, you have to show after the first period of time, if it's 90 days or whatever, you have to show some sort of progress, you know, and you have to document that to the judge to continue, you know, the fact you're intercepting somebody. You have to. So when we find out what's actually in these affidavits,
which we still don't know,
you know, it's going to be a big day, and a lot of people are going to feel the heat of the law. Well, they should, because
James
it's an outrage.
Still sitting out there in the wings, waiting his turn. He comes out still sanctimonious, still self-righteous, and still so compromised, and I think personally so corrupt.
And a total lack of common sense. I mean, the guy, you know, he's an educated moron. I mean, he just absolutely, you know, and look what he did to the FBI. You know, no leadership. No discipline, no nothing.
You get the last word here. Where does this end in your view right now?
I don't know what's going to happen with the Attorney General. And the Deputy Attorney General is, you know, he needs to be not the Deputy Attorney General, but somebody needs to impanel a grand jury. I mean, these are the most outrageous crimes conducted in the United States in my history.
Yeah, much bigger than Watergate. I think we both agree.
Much bigger than that.
Jim Kallstrom, as always, great to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks so much.
Basically being manipulated by Comey. Why the heck not appoint one here?
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought about that too.
Why not appoint one here?
Yeah, I've raised that issue. All right, we're taking your calls, 800-941-7326 or 800-941-SEAN. I'm Jay Sekulow here with Rudy Giuliani. Giuliani and Sekulow hosting the Sean Hannity Show. Let's go to Staten Island. Scott, you're on the air.
Hey, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Big fan of yours.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Big fan of yours.
How are you? And I'm a fan of Staten Island. You know that.
There you go.
Yeah, well, if you trust me, we're a huge fan of yours, too.
What's going on?
Guys, what I'm really concerned what's going on. You know, you have all these ultra-left wingers out there, and I just got to know that after this is over, that you guys are really going to drop the hammer on some of these people. I mean, Comey, Mueller, all these other people, you know, and now you have Dianne Feinstein out there employing a Chinese spy for the last 20 years. You have all these
Only 2 decades.
Right. That's all. I mean, you know, it wasn't that long. I mean, you also have these people, the way they're speaking about the president and his family. I've never heard anything like it in my life. And they're telling lies and lies and lies. But please tell me that after this garbage is done, I mean, obviously you can't tell me. Obviously, I understand. But are people going to get in trouble for this?
Well, look, I mean, I have some experience with government officials that have not done appropriate conduct, and that was Lois Lerner and the targeting that she engaged in at the IRS. I actually represented those conservative groups that challenged the IRS on this. Ultimately, Lois Lerner took the Fifth Amendment. She had the right to do it rather than testifying, although she took it in a kind of an unusual way. She lost her position, did not lose her pension. She was not criminally prosecuted, and we as private lawyers can't initiate. We can't bring a criminal case. That's what the government does. In that case, though, it did cause reform within the Internal Revenue Service, at least within the nonprofit world. Now, Rudy, you were involved in this because of, I'll use the 9/11 example. We obviously had gaps and flaws in our intelligence gathering. Mm-hmm. You were part of the team that kind of put it all back together again. So what does happen when you look at, if you've got this, fundamental problem within an agency, here the FBI and DOJ, what do you do?
Well, I think if I were the Attorney General, I would appoint an independent counsel, and I'd appoint the independent counsel for two purposes. Purpose number one, to appropriately prosecute the people who violated these laws. Comey clearly leaked a document that he wasn't supposed to leak, clear violation of the law. He committed perjury about whether he was obstructed or not, or he felt he was obstructed. I could go on and on. So I'd have those things, the Strzok thing, the dossier, the paying for it, the lying to the court, all that should be investigated. But I'd also have the independent counsel do a report on how to clean this up so it doesn't happen in the future. That's what happened after Watergate. I joined the Justice Department, and I was the Associate Deputy Attorney General for Judge Harold Tyler when he was the deputy to Ed Levy. And we produced a document of how to reform the Justice Department. So it included rules like you can't communicate with the White House except through the White House counsel's office. So Justice Department just can't call up the White House and discuss a criminal case.
Right.
We are in need of that kind of straightening out of the Justice Department now. You know how frustrated the president is.
Yep. Understandably.
About the state of what he says, my Justice Department is doing this, my Justice Department is doing that. It needs thoroughgoing reform the way Ed Levy reformed it after Watergate, because it was completely infected by Obama.
Let's go ahead and take another call, and I think let's go to Las Vegas and Larry. Larry, go ahead. You're on the Sean Hannity Show.
Yes, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I practiced my profession in Illinois and Nevada.
Thank you for your service.
It's very clear to me, sir, and I'm very familiar with how the patronage system works, and I know the mayor should be very familiar with this in running a big city. Obama protected Hillary, and we know that. There's things that's even mentioned in Kevin Kline's book, Guilty as Sin, where Comey was called in. So these were all directives given by the past president, Barack Obama. In everything that's come out, revealed through Fox News and other entities and a lot of books, it's very clear Obama should be charged. The Department of Justice is being lax in its responsibility right now. They should be looking and investigating and charging Barack Obama with abuse of power.
What do you think, Rudy?
I don't want to jump that far yet.
I don't think you could.
I would agree with you. It is crying out for an investigation. There are a couple others where it is clear they violated the law. Comey, clear. The dossier, clear. The people who paid for that dossier and then the people who included it in the Pfizer application, maybe the worst of all. But how much did the president know and when did he know it? And that's a good question. It is worthy of investigation. But I think, in fairness, we shouldn't jump to a conclusion.
Look, I think here's the problem. This idea that you immediately go to an investigation of a former president or a president. I think, listen, I think that for Rudy, and certainly for me and Rudy, that the fact is we're dealing with one right now, and these things should not be entered into lightly. And I think you've got to understand that's part of the process that we're going through in dealing with representation of the president, and why this is, why we're in this discussions that we've had with the special counsel's office and continue to have regarding where this ends. We want this to be over with soon. We think the country deserves it to be over with soon. Our position is clear that we do not think there's been any violation of any law, rules, or regulations, but we want to see this end. And this has been unprecedented cooperation at the highest levels, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to take another call, though. Because someone is calling about a situation that, Mayor, I think really you could address, and that's Amy from Colorado, and she's concerned about Chicago. Amy, go ahead. You're on the Sean Hannity Show.
Yeah.
Hi, gentlemen. It's an honor to speak to both of you. My question is for you, Mr. Mayor. I have a brother that lives in Chicago. Of course, I'm concerned about the situation there. All the deaths over the past week, and they just don't seem to have their act together. What recommendations do you have to clean that city up?
Well, let's just remind people there were 72 people shot over last weekend. 72 people shot
in a weekend
over last weekend. Not a single person as of yesterday arrested, which is not unusual. They don't clear all but about 1 out of 20 shootings, which is totally impossible to understand. And the mayor is finding all kinds of excuses other than let's reform the situation and handle it.
What would you do?
I would immediately appoint a police commissioner who was going to put in a CompStat system that really works, which means measuring crime.
I was going to say, let's just define that for the audience. When you say CompStat, what do you mean?
CompStat was invented by me, Bill Bratton, Jack Maple. One of the people who clearly knows it well is Gary McCarthy, who's running for mayor of Chicago. He ran the system for us for 4 or 5 years. I don't want to get involved in the politics.
Yeah, what does that system do?
It's a computer-based system. It very intricate. It measures crime every day, and then it pin maps it, puts it on a map, tells you where the crimes are being committed, shows you where your gaps are, and then every day you readjust your policing to try to have the police in the right place at the right time. And then every week you have a CompStat meeting, in which you go through about 2 or 3 hours of where you did it right, where you did it wrong, who needs resources.
What is preventing them? Why would they not do it?
The city of New York has been doing that.
Yep.
Since the first day of 1994, crime is down 73%. Murder is down about 78%.
So why are they not doing it?
Chicago has 3 times the murders of New York.
But why not do it? Why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't Rahm Emanuel do it?
You have to ask Rahm Emanuel. I mean, he's fiddling while Chicago burns. Rahm Emanuel is not a law enforcement guy. He doesn't understand it. His police department doesn't do a damn thing for him because he turns his back on him. Part of this is also your police department has to be willing to go the extra mile for you because you go the extra mile for them. You're constantly blaming them for things. You're making them worried about doing their jobs. They're just not going to do their jobs if they're the ordinary cop. The hero cop will do it anyway.
Is part a policing issue, part is a structural issue?
It's a policing issue. It's a morale issue. Look, the communities want it now. I mean, he's having terrible problems.
Yep.
Plus, he made some comment on it's only in certain neighborhoods. You're darn right, Ron, it's in certain neighborhoods.
That's not
it's
an
in the poor neighborhoods. It's in the black neighborhoods. And they're the people who are being slaughtered. And you're not doing a damn thing about it.
All right. We're with the Rudy Giuliani. You got Giuliani and Sekulow here, sub-hosting or not sub-hosting, co-hosting. Co-hosting for Sean
our
Hannity.
good friend, Sean
Hannity. We're also going to take your calls at 800-941-7326 or 800-941-SEAN. Also, I should say, if you want to follow us, you can do that at Rudy Giuliani or at Jay Sekulow or aclj.org. We've got a lot more ahead on what I consider a very fun day, being able to host the Sean Hannity Show. All right, we'll talk to you more in just a moment. Hey, welcome back to the Sean Hannity Show. Jay Sekulow here, co-hosting with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We've got a lot more ahead, by the way, coming up, but it is great doing this with you.
Well, I think we've clearly demonstrated and will demonstrate through the course of this show that there's a lot of questions about this investigation. It surely looks like an illegitimate investigation. The President of the United States said this a long time back, that it's a witch hunt. And well, you could describe it a lot of ways, a hoax, like Greg's book. But you look at the questions, they keep flowing out.
Yep, and there's more information coming up. By the way,
keep listening.
Coming up, we've got some of my colleagues at the American Center for Law and Justice. We're going to talk about Turkey, talk about that issue involving Pastor Andrew Brunson. We've got a lot more ahead. We're having a lot of fun here on the Sean Hannity Show. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Hey everybody, welcome back to Hour 2 of the Sean Hannity broadcast. This is Jay Sekulow. I am sitting in for Sean, and also joining me today is going to be my good friend Mayor Rudy Giuliani. You just heard from him. You're going to hear from him some more. But I'm going to tell you before we get back to Mayor Giuliani, and there's a lot of news going on, obviously, but there's one thing that I have a stake in, I will say, and that is, of course, I have a stake in most of the news these days. I was making a joke the other day that sometimes you're making the news, sometimes you're in the news, and sometimes you're just talking about the news. I will tell you these days I am doing both, or all three. I am making the news, talking about the news, and have been in the news. Having said that, of course, not only am I counsel to the President of the United States, as Mayor Giuliani is, I am also the Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, and we have a case that is in the news. In fact, right now, it is the lead story on Drudge, and it's a case, an issue that we've been talking about a lot. In fact, Sean has been talking about it as well, and that is the case of Andrew Brunson. He's an American Christian pastor. He's been in Turkey for 23 years. He was picked up after the coup in Turkey 2 years ago and was put in jail. The charge against him was Christianization. That is actually in the indictment. We're going to talk about that because the lead right now on Drudge Report, and this is true, is Turkey's economy on the brink. This could be the most expensive pastor in world history. The billion-dollar pastor in one sense. I mean, it's hard to believe that Turkey is letting itself get to this point. I mean, this is supposed to be a NATO ally, after all. Get to this point because they're so entrenched on keeping this pastor in Turkey. Now, I will say there's some good news, and that he's been released to home confinement, so that certainly was better than being in a Turkish jail. I am bringing in some of our experts at the American Center for Law and Justice to address this issue. Jordan Sekulow is our executive director. He's also my son. Andy Economo is a senior counsel for the ACLJ and is very involved in the issues involving the Middle East and Turkey. Harry Hutchison is our director of public policy. Jordan, let's go to the latest to start with you here from the standpoint of the pastor's incarceration. We'll get into the economy in Turkey being impacted about this, but why don't you give everybody the latest report on where the case is, because it changes literally on a daily basis. Right now he's on house arrest.
Yeah, so that's a much better situation you would to be in as an individual. You know, we've had these situations where people are coming right out of that prison environment back to reality and outside of it. That can be tougher. So remember, this is his home, long-term home there. So while he's confined and so under house arrest, this is a familiar place. That being said, it's still confined. So he's still being detained by a NATO ally and by Turkey, by the government in this situation. The case has not been dropped. The move, and I'd say that every day he's there now, the Turkish media, which is in these reports about the economy, it's nonstop. We're not so used to it here. It's become in the news more and more, so people are getting more familiar with Andrew Brunson's name. But for 2 years, he has been battered around the Turkish press to the point where it is not safe for him to be on the streets anymore. As someone who lived there for 23 years, that is the situation he is in. So every moment he has to stay in Turkey, even with the security he's got, is dangerous.
Well, he's got 18 Turkish security guards around his house right now. I mean, 18. I mean, just think about that, protecting him from an environment that the Turkish government, Erdogan, created. Now, again, I'm going to go to Andy Economo, who's the senior counsel, has been very involved in this case. Andy, you speak a lot of languages. You were able to translate the Turkish. This pastor, the charge against him is actually, I mean, folks, this is the reality of what you're dealing with. Everybody, of course, when they get arrested in these situations, they're a spy, it's espionage, they're a CIA agent. That's the allegations. But in this one, in addition to making, you know what the basis upon that was? It's called Christianization. Andy, that is the actual charge in the indictment.
Yes, that's exactly correct, Jay. What they're charging this pastor with is the Christianization of the Turkish Republic, or the attempt to Christianize the Turkish people. And this is a ridiculous charge. It is no crime. The Turkish Constitution provides, at least publicly and for purposes of popular consumption, freedom of religion and worship, but that's not the case for the minorities in Turkey. I'm Greek. I can tell you it's not the case for the Greek minorities in Turkey, and especially for the beleaguered ecumenical patriarch in Constantinople and Istanbul. That is not the case. And so what Pastor Brunson is being charged with is something that is not a crime, but has been concocted by the Erdogan regime, Erdogan being basically a dictator today in Turkey, and he is being charged with Christianization, a horrible thing to be charged with, something that is not, as I said, an